Hi, folks. My name is Marcos Escalzi. I'm an organizer of the last 11 years. I love queer people, and I'm the founder of We Believe in Deep Canvassing. This moment demands that we get deep canvassing out to as many organizers as possible, and to meet many where they're at, it's important to share deep canvassing with your candidates and allow deep canvassing to share your candidates with you. New Mexico. Today we're sharing your candidate for U.S. Senate, who has earned our endorsement, our very first endorsement ever, veteran and community organizer Matt Dodson. Matt, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I am proudly running as a Democratic Socialist for United States Senate. And my big issues are universal health care, money out of politics, tax the rich, and free college. I am taking no corporate money, including APAC money, and I am too pissed off to be bought off. So that's my standard go-to. And when the Democratic Party is at a 14% approval rating, clearly people are demanding change. And that's what I represent.
Hmm. 14% is quite the number. And
Painful and disgusting is
at
what it
20,
is.
it's true. It's true. No, it's true. It's true. Absolutely. And we see this with a lot of, I think, with both parties, really. It's just that's the case these days. And yet we're seeing with your campaign, with sort of volunteers getting involved, and from what you all have told me, it seems like the energy has only been really building up as soon as you really get to talk to people. This is something that they really want to, this is a vision they sort of really want to invest in. You know, they love candidates that are too pissed off to be bought off. Makes sense.
Well, and anybody that goes to my website, I had a guy respond the other day that just said, "Wow, this is my dream platform." And I don't expect people to agree with me 100% of the time, but I haven't found hardly anyone that can question any part of the platform. It is just basic stuff that needs done, that should have been done a long time ago, and we need somebody in there who's going to fight for it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a, and Matt, and getting the chance to review your platform, I feel like there's definitely a certain clarity there that I've really that I really appreciate, and I can just see that this is something that, just because of just because of how long you've been organizing, as you mentioned yourself, and how long that these sorts of issues have been on your mind, I can so clearly see that this is something that you are incredibly passionate about, and that it's just time to it's just time to make it clear. No, there's no shortcuts about it. I mean, this is something that we should expect our government to do for us, you know.
When so many of these issues have 70+% support, and in a democracy, you should be able to pass anything that hits 51%. We have stuff with 70, 80, even pushing 90% support, and we can't get it passed. Well, that is clearly due to the money in politics. That is due to people being bought off. That is due to really, we no longer have a democracy. Bernie calls it an oligarchy, but it is truly ruled by the rich, the billionaires, the corporations, and now, unfortunately, Israel.
Mm. Gosh, APAC in its has shown a very considerable certainly there's a lot they are operating perhaps within their means as a pack to advocate for a certain set of issues, but the idea that that another country has so much purchase in our politics that they are just because of the Citizens United decision that they're allowed to spend so much money that based on just the way that that's the way that they clearly outwardly communicate after election results or in general that there is there is not this sort of dedication to trying to reach out to communities or trying to have honest conversations, right? It's just the demand of their own the demand of their own positions, just really trying to speak as objectively as possible. It's not it's not healthy. It's not fair, you know.
I'm going to go further because, and
Mm,
I've never heard anyone say this, but I'm calling it terrorism. 2 years ago, APAC and affiliated Israeli lobbies spent over $14 million to take out one member of Congress, and that was Cory Bush, and they also took out Jamal Bowman. And the
mm,
minute they did that, And what terrorism is for is you make an example of someone to keep everybody else in line. So they took out two people who should have skated to reelection because they're members of the squad. They're doing what people wanted, very popular. But
mm,
and that was the most expensive House race ever in the United States of America.
mm,
And that's just ridiculous. But that shows what money can do. And
mm,
it is so effective that all five of the New Mexico members in Congress, three House, two senators,
mm,
none of them can call after over a 2.5 year ongoing horrible genocide in Gaza. None of our five can call it a genocide because they are afraid of that APAC money coming in
mm.
and booting them out of office. Well, you know what? If you're afraid of that, then stop running. Just get out. We don't need you. If you can't do what the people want, get out. And that's all five of them.
Mm.
So that is how effective that $25 million, 14 in one, over 10 in the other, that's how effective that money was for Israel.
Mm.
And that's why Citizens United needs to be overturned, which is
Yeah.
completely doable.
Mm. Certainly where there's a public will, there's a way, and this is just an issue that has been talked about. I think so as long as I've been politically conscious. I think since it was passed, really. And I appreciate that you mentioned Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman as well, because of course AIPAC is I can't help but notice that um, I whenever it is two black constituents in particular that are targeted, you have to it is incumbent upon us to start raising some eyebrows, and that's just another facet of the conversation that there's not so much how much respect is there necessarily for the stories what Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman represented for their respective communities as in comparison to AIPAC's larger priorities, which doesn't it's not they it's clearly not leading to this sort of if it's leading to this sort of politics in I believe that's Missouri's first district and in I want to say New York's 13th or 14th, no, not 14th, excuse me, anyway, this is in the New York congressional district and Missouri's congressional district in these races where you see these candidates that ran against them, and you see the sort of the narratives and ultimately the situation on the ground that developed. It's a lot of it is largely informed by these sorts of biased arguments that touch on what the community cares about, right? It certainly does an excellent job of painting Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman in a certain light that makes it seem like that's something that community cannot get behind, right? But in reality, of course, biased arguments are necessarily biased. They are not. They serve a sort of purpose, and APAC makes that abundantly clear because they utilize that every abundantly and in many different opportunities and races that they've targeted across the country. I guess yeah, I guess I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about that.
Yes, as a matter of fact, several, because clearly it's been very successful as to what they've done. Cori Bush is running again, and hopefully she gets reelected. We definitely need another fighter in there. And at this point, the APAC money's starting to work against APAC, so they're finding other PACs and other individuals to throw that money at candidates, so it's not associated or as easily associated with the Israeli lobby. And now that we've gone to war for Israel in Iran, this is just shameful and disgusting. We truly have a foreign country controlling the United States of America. And if I could discuss Citizens United as to how easy it is to overturn, because no legislature has ever said money is speech and corporations are people. Never. Matter of fact, they've always stated just the opposite. This was put into place by the John Roberts Supremacist Court. And here's how it can be overturned. Article 3, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution states that Congress shall set the rules for the Supreme Court. So, one way to do it is to simply say money's not speech, corporations aren't people, develop the
mm,
standards or the discipline for it, because many states had it that if a corporation put money into politics, their corporate charter was revoked. The end of that corporation, period. So then, by damn, shareholders had better watch out who they put in as a CEO and board of directors because they could just lose it all instantly. But here's how Congress can do it, because Reagan was having troubles with the Supreme Court. So he got an attorney to look into how he could bypass the Supreme Court. And what they came up with, what this attorney came up with, was Article 3, Section 2 sets the rules for the Supreme Court. So, therefore, in a law, you can write in it that the Supreme Court cannot hear this law. And they've done it before. And that attorney is now Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. That attorney was John Roberts.
mm.
So this can be done. We can leave out the damn Supreme Court and we can get money out of politics and pass or include in that same law publicly funded elections.
Mm, mm, mm. Terrific. I that's a very exciting legal premise. I haven't heard a candidate presented
It's
that in
already
that
been
way.
adjudicated. It's already
Mm,
been adjudicated. Now,
mm,
there are exceptions to it, but even so, and the fact that it was invented or, discovered by who is now the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, yeah, how can he go back on what he's already ruled on, what he came up with and has already ruled on?
mm. Gosh. Oh, wow. So many different issues facing our communities today, Matt. So many different things that we could talk about. Oh my gosh. Um, well, so I certainly we can continue that conversation as well. But I did want to. I think we've done a wonderful job so far of really demonstrating, I think, a lot of your passion and values, and I think your connection to a lot of these fights around to certainly an issue that's very important to me, which is the issue of what to do about ICE, or specifically abolishing ICE. As a deep canvasser, it is very incumbent upon us, of course, to always engage people with that judgment, because that is where a lot of the only real productive conversation, especially around so many of these very divisive issues, take place. So I did want to ask you, without judgment, on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 means you would fight to empower ICE in the US Senate, and 10 means you would fight to abolish ICE in the Senate, and 5 is somewhere in the middle. Where would you put yourself, and why is that the right number for you?
At a definitive 10. And I actually would go further because ICE is a construct of the Patriot Act. So I would eliminate the Patriot Act. So, of
Mm,
course, abolish ICE first and then get rid of the Patriot Act, which covers the government's ability to collect so much information on you and intrude and bypass courts and et cetera. So I want to do both. Now, specifically with ICE. So my wife is from Mexico. And when she came here, she brought her infant son. Well, so he got picked up by the deporter in chief's ICE, again, under the Patriot Act. And that was under Obama's ICE. So he got picked up for a marijuana possession charge that he got at the age of 17. Never spent a single night in jail for that charge. And then because there's no statute of limitations on ICE charges, he was picked up at the age of 35 as a single father uh, and shipped off to a shithole tent city in Texas. And it took
mm,
nearly 3 months and twenty to $30,000 to get him before a judge. So, and the way he was treated there, the way he was treated going there, shackled the whole time. It took 2 days to get him there. Only one time did they stop, and he's got the scars on his wrist to prove it. And if you needed to do the use the restroom, well, you just used it right there in your seat. So this is how Obama's ICE treated people. I cannot imagine. how Donald Trump's racist, hateful, despicable ICE is treating people. So we must eliminate ICE and eliminate it quickly. And it destroys individuals, it destroys families. We saw the pictures of 5 year old, I don't remember how old he was, with the bunny ears and the Spider Man backpack. He
Mm.
got picked up, and
Liam.
within a couple of days, his entire frame of mind was forever changed. And this can't happen in the United States of America. We have concentration camps in the US. They have purchased many, many more uh, warehouses to convert to concentration camps, which were never made for that purpose. And frankly, in the US, should never, ever have been dreamed of. And the way to eliminate those is Amendment 6 of our Constitution states a speedy and fair trial. Well, when I get in, I will push to have a law passed that defines what a speedy trial is. And that is that you will be in, after you get arrested or picked up by any law enforcement, you will be in front of a judge with representation within 2 weeks. And almost anywhere else, that occurs overnight, or if you get picked up Friday, it occurs Monday morning. But then they would only be able to go after the worst of the worst, basically the ones with uh, felonies, major felonies, and everybody else they just have to release because we don't have the immigration judges and we don't have the immigration attorneys. And that would basically put an end to why even pick people up when you can't keep them, other than to harass and intimidate. But uh, short of that, that would eliminate them detaining people for the periods of time that they're doing. And the other purpose of that is also we've got to eliminate privatized prisons because this is just a
Mm.
huge transfer of money
Mm.
from us, the taxpayer, to these
Mm.
corporations. And then, of course, a portion gets thrown back to the politicians. So,
Mm.
so many different aspects there. But ICE needs to be abolished. It is
Mm.
a stain on America. It is
Mm.
disgusting and shameful. And I know I say that too much, but there's too much going on right now. And again, it didn't just start right now.
Mm.
And one of my
Mm.
other catch all phrases is where were and are the Democrats? Because again, when this occurred under Obama and
Mm.
worse, Obama
Mm.
was the first one to put children in cages. So when Democrats did not speak up against the leader of their own party, and
Mm.
shame on a minority
Mm.
president doing that to others. That again, shameful and disgusting. And who's called him out for it? And he should have been instantly called out for it. And those immigrant children never should have been put into cages. But
Mm.
when it wasn't called out then how can people now, how can the Democrats now speak up against a Republican president?
Mm.
So when we don't prosecute stuff, the next time it occurs by the next person, it's worse. We
Mm.
have got to start upholding American laws and making sure this never occurs again.
Mm. 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 It's just so much for it's because I can understand that from the mind coming at this from the mindset of a deep canvasser. If I really have the solid faith that people really are trying to act on their values most of the time, I can understand if there is this sort of if you're engaging this conversation with a sense of of resource scarcity, or like the immigrants are removing access to the jobs, or it's changing like the way that your community looks or feels. Those are rooted in impulses that I think are understandable. But what ICE has become at this point is something so entirely, it's several degrees beyond unjustifiable. It's at this point, yeah, it's an act of. I don't have the I I don't have the words to describe it and the impact it's had on me and my family. you know.
It's even worse than that because name one time that Biden or Kamala, when she was running for president, said how much we need immigrants, how they commit crimes at far lower rates than Americans, that they are good people. They didn't say a word because at the time the statistics were against immigrants. So they completely ceded the conversation to the Republicans, who are at this point preaching nothing but fear and hate. So they're doing that alone is shameful and disgusting. But we have had a shortage of workers, and I see a crash coming, an enormous crash, and that does pit workers against workers, even immigrants against immigrants, because people that have been here, and this is historical, uh, the Italians would come in, they'd take the lowest jobs available, they'd start moving up, and then more Italians would come in and work for lower wages, and the Italian immigrants that have been here for a couple of years are now upset with the new immigrants.
Mm,
So that's where we also need laws that allow employers to hire immigrants, not
mm,
abuse them, work them for a set wage so that they cannot hire people for a very, very low wage. And as an example, I was in Florida, oh, it's been a year and 3 or 4 months ago, and they had had a hurricane easily a year before, maybe even longer than that. There were
okay.
still blue tarps on roofs of very expensive houses because they couldn't get anybody to repair those roofs.
Mm,
And I'm a damn hard worker,
mm,
and I've been a manual laborer. And if it was my house, I'd get up and do it myself.
mm,
But to get somebody up on a roof when it's 90 degrees, 100% humidity, and on that
mm,
roof, it's not 90, it's 120 degrees.
mm,
Yeah, it's not a pleasant job, but immigrants will do that job.
mm,
And they didn't have enough workers to even get those roofs repaired. And
mm,
then they went on a crusade to get rid of immigrants.
mm,
Just stupidity. And even Republican governors are now realizing what a screw up it was. And
mm,
so we do need immigrants. They benefit us tremendously. And what's going on now is actually going to really hurt us economically in the future because they're not just going after the manual laborers, they're
mm,
going after uh, anybody, especially if you're at a university and let's say you criticize Israel or you say
oh,
that Gaza or Palestine isn't bad, you're gone. And these are researchers with doctorates at the top of their field that are going to give us the next inventions, the next pharmaceuticals, et cetera. They've done it forever, uh, all the way back to World War II when it was basically the German scientists who, for good or bad, invented the atomic bomb. But
mhm,
look
mhm,
at all
yep,
the stuff that
mm,
now is going to leave the US and go to other countries. We're going to have a huge brain drain. And that was
mm,
one of the benefits that the US had to develop our economy to where it is
right,
bringing in the best of the best from other countries.
right,
And likewise, they're saying the worst of the worst. Well, uh, again, my stepson got picked up for a nonviolent, trivial crime, marijuana possession, and
mm,
was picked up by ICE for it. And the two people before him in court had unpaid traffic fines.
mm,
So Obama had already long gotten rid of the worst of the worst, and which was continued under Trump and continued under Biden. So
mm,
if an immigrant commits a major crime, they're gone,
mm,
fine, or they get prosecuted, they serve their time, and then they're gone. But
mm,
yeah, it's just and seeding the argument of, oh, we're going after the worst of the worst, and they're all the worst of the worst. It's like enough,
mm,
Democrats, wake up, speak up, be honest, and take control.
yeah. We we spend so much time, I think, framing immigrants as uh all the time they're just we're always talking about them in terms of their relationship to labor, in terms of their legal status, just of how long they've been here or whatever. It's always they always need to be opportunists. They always need to be they always need to be very working class or have come over with no money. They always need to be foreign or alien to the communities they find themselves in, and they always need to be something that we they're always framed as something we we say as immigrants ourselves. They something that we need to deal with, right? What do we what kind of opportunities do we and and just as you're touching on, what kind of opportunities do we miss out when we're not really engaging the what opportunities do our immigrants present us with? You know, what kind of opportunities for relationship building are there for strengthening our communities, for introducing these other perspectives, for whatever, you know, if I can speak to my own experience that immigrants, yeah, they will work hard every time. So what even even just beyond the even just beyond the brain drain, what kind of opportunity is there for our communities to grow stronger with immigrants around, right, as part of our identity? You know, this is something that's on my mind a lot.
That's what's formed the United States of America. Again, the diversification, that is what leads to so many different ideas. And even language alone, the way your language is organized determines how you think. And uh, people, so bringing in groups of people with other languages even changes how things are looked at, which again leads to inventions. Uh,
Hmm.
Something that's very impressive, now we don't concentrate on it enough, is being bilingual is essentially having a college degree. And many immigrants are bilingual before the age of 10. And in New Mexico, we rate our schools very, very low, which is, well, look at what they're leaving out. So they're leaving out, so they'll test somebody for language. So let's say a 10-year-old should be this number of words, and that's 100%.
Hmm.
Well, when an immigrant child is at 80%, they say that they're not up to par. But when they're at 80% in two languages, isn't that 160%? That child is way ahead of everybody else. And you
Hmm.
just asked how that benefits us. Going to med school is learning a second language. Well, when you already know two languages, your third language is even easier. So we should be creating a pipeline for bilingual students to get into uh, med school
Hmm.
because, again, they already know two languages, and a lot of them that come from south of the border uh, is Spanish, which
Hmm.
so a lot of the medical terms are Latin in origin. So it makes it even easier for
This is true.
so there's so many ways that we could take advantage, not advantage, that our immigrant communities benefit us, and
Yeah.
they do.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. So I'm sort of I think from this conversation I'm gathering that there's that I think we both feel this intense sort of unfairness, not even just with the actions themselves, but even just in an unfairness with just the we aren't really you know we're not really doing our jobs. We're not really investing in our communities. If we miss the opportunity to protect and empower immigrants for this utter you know, this necessity of needing to throw them in these sorts of facilities and violate their human rights. It's you know it's just incredible. So it certainly seems like a sense of unfairness that we share. Which is that how you would
Well,
qualify?
let's discuss what's actually going on here.
Oh, okay.
Is the best way to unite a group of people is to have a common enemy. And that is where the Republicans or conservatives are just way too many people. Uh, the teaching of fear and hate unites them,
Hmm.
and that needs to end. We need to put a halt to the promotion of fear and hate,
Hmm.
and using that to a party's benefit to get into power and to stay in power is again shameful, and disgusting. And
Mm.
who's calling it out? Because when Trump came down the escalator the first time he ran, uh, he didn't know that the immigrant issue was going to be such a big one, but he threw out the phrase and it caught. So he ran with it,
Mm. Mm.
and it should have been halted right then and there. And instead, the Democrats just they didn't respond.
Yeah.
And
So,
so again, here we are.
mm, I'm
Yeah, okay,
curious.
so let's come up with a solution. We do have a common enemy, and that's climate change. So we're not just uniting people here, we're uniting everyone worldwide to
Mm.
fight to save our planet.
Mm.
And that's doable. And that is something that needs to be done and promoted right now.
Yeah.
So, and that's something that will unite people. It puts people to work. It is money that needs to be spent. It is not a waste of money, it's an investment.
Yeah.
So, by definition, investments pay themselves back. So, anything we spend on making the United States a leader in renewable energy pays back in
Yeah.
tremendous amounts of uh, percentages. So, and
So,
then again, to do it worldwide and to bring everybody else into, a decent set of living, it's stuff that needs done. And it's stuff we
yeah.
can do. And it's worth spending our money on that, not war. When
Mm.
you blow up a bomb, that's not an investment, it's gone. So the only way it would be in an investment is in defending yourself. And we're in no wars of defense right now. They're all wars of aggression.
Yeah.
So again, let's unite on taming or bringing or diminishing
Right.
what is sure to come, the
Yeah.
horrible effects that climate change is already reaping upon us,
Right.
from wildfires to floods to hurricanes to excessive rain to drought to
Absolutely.
whatever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Uh, I I find it very interesting and compelling and relevant that you could that it's true that I think from a especially from a values perspective it is sort of it's there's is an easy connection between um advocating for what uh immigrants contribute and respecting them as more human beings on this earth, and of course recognizing that as human beings on this earth we have to protect the earth. We have to address this moment head on. There's no that is the choice that we have. That's the opportunity that's available to us. And when we act on those values or act with that sort of perspective of understanding that in in advocating for immigrants and abolishing ICE, that is just an extension of the larger conversation, which is that we need to cherish all life on Earth so that all life on Earth, certainly all human beings on Earth, so that we have the sense of solidarity necessary to tackle such a generation-defining issue. Mm.
And let's make that our defining issue.
Mm. Yeah, I was terrific. I mean, I feel that it's you're defining it. You're bringing it up. I appreciate it. Excellent. Okay. Well, so Matt, I'd love to not to obviously all these issues are going to connect as well. So that always makes for a very exciting conversation. But I wanted to take a moment to talk about universal health care as well. I suppose I'll ask you the same question as I asked you when it came to abolishing ICE, which is that I want to ask you without judgment as a means of opening up this conversation and seeing where exactly we stand on these sorts of things. On a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 means that you would not support Medicare for all or universal health care, or you'd want to maintain the current system, and 10 means that you would want to do away with the current system in favor of a universal healthcare system, in which case, wherein all meaningful medical debt is covered in this country. On that scale of 0 to 10, five somewhere in the middle, where would you put yourself?
Again, definitively at a 10. We need universal health care. We should have passed it years and years and years ago, or decades ago, or uh, a century ago. Theodore Roosevelt actually introduced it in the 1910s somewhere. And
Mm.
uh, there's so many reasons why we need universal health care. A, every other country has it. B, and I don't want to hear how we're going to pay for it because it's going to save us money. And it
Mm.
helps everybody, especially in rural areas, rural clinics, when they serve a low income population and they don't know how, if they're going to be reimbursed for services. With universal health care, they know they will be reimbursed, which means they know they have a steady income stream to bring in doctors and nurses and facilities and et cetera.
Mm.
And so that's one enormous benefit to typically conservatives, because mostly
Mm.
the rural areas are very conservative. And
Mm.
they're the ones really being hit hard by clinics closing, especially under this current administration.
Right.
And even Obamacare, I never refer to it that way. I call it Obama insurance because it was
Mm.
uh,
Mm.
a plan came up by the Heritage Foundation, first passed by Mitt Romney, a conservative Republican, and it was called Romney Care in Massachusetts. And
Right.
then Obama picked it up. And it was a tax on richer Americans to provide wholly inadequate health insurance to Americans. Now, I'm with the VA, and the VA is not health insurance. It is health care. That is a tremendous difference. If a doctor
Mm.
says something needs done, they do have a way to monitor doctors, and they do. But if a doctor says it needs done, it gets done. And that is health care. And that's
Mm.
what every American should have. They should have what I have, and really what our entire Congress has.
Mm.
So we definitely need health care. It would benefit us in so many ways, and it would save so much money. Even, well, 60,000 Americans die every year due to uh, the
Mm.
ability to pay for health care.
Mm.
And to me, that is murder. So
Mm.
our members of Congress, and I'd even call it first degree murder, and I changed the law to state so. Now, first degree murder requires intent and specific intent. Well, you don't know exactly who's going to die, but you know many, many people are going to die due to this. So therefore, to me, that is specific intent.
Mm.
So
Gosh.
anyone who doesn't vote for universal health care
Yeah.
needs prosecuted for murder.
Mm.
And but and when those people die, you know,
Mm.
it's torture because you go through an illness and you don't have access to painkillers,
Mm.
or even worse. No, I'm not going to say it's worse, but I mean just as bad is,
Sure.
you know, that your illness, your cancer, your whatever could have been dealt with early and you would no longer have it. Uh, that would just tear me apart mentally. And the way that affects caretakers, families, you know, come on, we can
Mm.
cover this. And I saw one figure that we would save $30 billion a year just on people getting access early. And as an
Gosh.
example, I had an uncle. Well, he
Okay.
had access, but he didn't go to a doctor.
Okay.
And he had not an aneurysm. What do you call it? What part of your body? The blood
Oh,
shut off to part of your brain. Pardon?
so,
Uh,
it's not an aneurysm. It's a stroke.
Stroke.
Is it even?
So
Yeah.
he had a stroke
Okay.
that could have been prevented by taking a baby aspirin every day. So for the cost of pennies, we could have saved tens of millions of dollars.
Mm.
So because again, he lived 20 years after that.
Yeah.
And, that affected him, that affected his family, that affected the care that he had to receive,
Yeah.
everything that could have
Yeah.
been prevented with a baby aspirin. It's like, come on, jeez, this is so frustrating. And,
Uh,
that's not cancer because I've had cancer. And again, with the VA, well, I'd be dead without the VA because
mhm.
normally with prostate cancer, that the go-to is, well, wait and see. And well, it is far more aggressive the younger you are. And I got it at the age of 53. And we don't
Oh,
even have a chart on how aggressive prostate cancer is on younger people.
oh,
And to me, the reason for that is with the chart,
hmm,
you would know that you would have to immediately treat that cancer, and thus insurance companies would have to pay out.
mhm,
Without that chart, everyone goes off of if an 80-year-old gets prostate cancer, they're probably going to die of something else other
mm,
than the prostate cancer.
mm,
So that's why it's wait and see. And it's also slower acting in older people. So again, if I would have had, well, no insurance, I'd be bankrupt. And if I had insurance, again, their first comeback would have been, well, let's wait and see. Because that's standard. No, 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 that's standard for older men.
mm,
That
mm.
should not be the standard for people that get that younger.
Right.
So see how I would have been screwed?
Yeah.
And even
Mhm,
before
mhm,
I had
mhm,
a prostatectomy, it got to stage 3 in less than a
mhm.
year.
Oh my.
So any waiting would have been a death penalty.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
we need universal health care,
Wow.
period.
Yeah. Wow. And Matt, I'd love to touch as well on this. I mean, I think that I think everyone has. I mean, how could, it's just one of the essential functions of government. How could everyone not have some sort of healthcare story? I think of all of these stories compounding each other year after year, just between physical and mental and disease related injury. It's just, what do you think people feel about this healthcare system right now? What, not only just their stories, but everyone else's stories compounding over and over again. What do you think is the reaction?
This is why uh, passing universal health care is over 70%
Mm,
and way higher with Democrats
hmm.
and a little bit lower with Republicans. But yet, that's the one issue that would benefit rural communities the most is having universal health care.
Absolutely.
And I will even tie it to the gun issue because, they've turned gun issue into a single voter issue. And which is more likely to save your life? A gun in the house to ward off an intruder or having a health clinic or hospital nearby?
Hmm.
It's clearly the hospital. As a matter
Mm,
of fact, just the opposite. And we're no longer even allowed to collect the statistics. The old statistics are a gun in the house is 22 times more likely to be used against a family member than an intruder.
mm,
And half of those, 11 out of the 22s, are suicides. Typically, a youth, a teenager, gets hold of the gun and,
mm,
slit in your wrist. There's an option for changing your mind, blowing your head off, typically
mm,
pretty effective at taking one's life. So, and then again, a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old hand a 3-year-old or 4-year-old a toy gun. What's the first thing they do? Point it at you and pull the trigger. It's what they see in every movie. That's exactly what they do. So, do
mm.
you know how many people get shot, especially mothers? The child finds the gun in the purse, pulls it out, shoots his mom or her mom. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the first thing they do.
Yeah.
So, and even there, we have ways to prevent it. They
Yeah.
have smart triggers out there. The NRA doesn't want them. I have no damn clue why they don't want them.
Hmm.
Uh, because with a smart trigger, it knows whose finger is on the trigger.
Yeah.
So an infant could never use that gun. A teenager could never use that gun to commit suicide. A teenager could never take that gun to school and use
Yeah.
it to commit a mass shooting. And so why don't we have them?
Mm,
Well, So again, on the gun issue, what I would do is
Mm,
all guns, like cars, because when we figured out that cars could kill people, we started coming up with licensure. So you had to prove that you're competent in using your automobile,
hmm.
and they had to be registered and they had to be insured. And you know what covers it the most? Insurance. Insurance companies hate to
I
pay out. So
hmm,
trust me, they are way ahead of everything. So just like many people that kill somebody with a gun already have a domestic dispute uh, file charge
hmm,
against them.
hmm,
So it'd be like having a DWI. You have a domestic dispute. I'm not taking your gun. I'm not making it illegal for you to have a gun unless you committed a felony. But that insurance company is going to make it damn hard for people that shouldn't have guns to have guns. And then you also come up with other ways to reduce your insurance, just like airbags, seatbelts, uh, anti theft systems on your car, whatever.
hmm.
If you have that smart trigger, or your insurance is going to drop dramatically,
Yeah,
dramatically.
yeah,
So, and that technology is already out there, but yet it's really trying to be
yeah.
withheld from the US, and it shouldn't
Mm,
be.
mm,
So,
mm.
yeah, sorry, we went from gosh, what were we doing?
No worries.
Universal health care. But here's another thing that it
Yeah.
really affects universal health care. And I heard this stat last night in a gubernatorial presentation,
Okay.
and they said that guns cost $6.6 billion per year in
Mm. In,
shootings and everything.
in
And I didn't catch, and I need to get with that candidate to see if that's only in New Mexico or if that's nationwide. But you can picture how, I mean,
mm,
a gun,
yeah,
A, the loss of life,
yeah,
B, treating gun injuries, uh,
mm,
the
yeah,
court system being, just inundated with this. Oh,
yeah,
the costs rack up quite quickly.
mm,
So, and getting into
yeah,
universal health care.
yeah,
And again, they can't even discuss it because pediatricians wanted to be able to ask, do you have a gun in the home? Because that is the number one killer of children in the United States is a gun, and
mm,
specifically a gun in the home. And
mm,
the U.S. passed a law where pediatricians cannot even ask that, which would just being able to ask the question would be able to inform a parent of what to do with their gun. You know,
yeah,
put it in a safe,
right.
put a trigger lock on it,
Mm,
get a smart trigger. I
mm,
mean, see what I mean? But again, how much money are we spending nationwide on people being shot by guns?
mm,
And the number one thing in New Mexico, again, from that forum last night,
mm, mm,
violent crimes are dropping in New Mexico,
mm,
except one, teenagers using guns.
mm. Oh,
Yes, that
yeah.
is, again, shameful and disgusting and needs ended. And the easy way to end it, and he said, and he's a district attorney running for governor. So he said that right now, if somebody sells a gun to somebody underage, it
Mm,
is a fourth degree felony. He wants it to be a second degree felony. Yeah, bullshit. I want it to be murder. If
mm,
if whoever they give that gun to commits murder, that adult just committed murder. And we already have it in other instances because
mm,
if you're receiving certain medications and you give your medication to somebody else, which I know a guy that did it, he gave
mm.
his painkillers to somebody else who committed suicide.
Oh man.
Well, that
Mm,
person's now in jail for
mm,
murder.
mm.
Well, how's that any different from an adult selling a gun to a child who commits murder?
Yeah.
It's even
Mm,
more direct because
mm,
that guy didn't know when he gave him the pills that he was in pain. He needed it for
yeah.
pain, and sometimes it's hard to get pain
Mm,
management pills.
mm,
That he was going to commit suicide with it.
mm, mm.
So, but when you give a gun to a child,
Yeah.
especially with the statistics, the
Mhm.
likelihood of what they're going to do with that gun is way too high. So yeah, to hell with second degree felony, or that's what it should be, I guess, if they don't commit murder.
Yeah.
But the minute they commit murder with that gun, you're
Yeah.
guilty.
Yeah. Hmm. I I think it's really quite something really interesting. I think about this sort of that now since you're connecting gun violence to this conversation as well, is that if we think about uh, again, always trying to think about it from this sort of values perspective. Obviously, when we're talking about Medicare for all, we're talking about something that is inherently healing and restorative for our communities, right? That's inherently what the conversation is rooted in. And always when it comes to gun violence, it's always violence. It's always something that we're rotting against others, or somebody, a child has access to something that they shouldn't, or that we're just not treating guns the way that we should. I mean, do you think it's interesting? I just thought it was very interesting that you brought this sort of up in the same conversation, because do you think that fighting that implementing universal healthcare would just impact the way that we see our communities and the way that we see each other. You know, the way that we're look if we're looking at each other as do we look at each other differently if we're really investing in each other's health instead of always trying to defend ourselves from each other?
So let me get into the history of why we don't have universal health care.
Oh man.
Yes, because of racism. So when Theodore Roosevelt introduced universal health care, there was some scientist who said that blacks are inherently inferior,
Hmm.
and that if we don't give them health care, they will simply die out. Now, extend that to when I think it was JFK tried to do universal health care. Don't quote me on that, but the next time it was tried, and it was tried, I think, also even by Nixon, I think, in the early 70s.
Hmm.
And it was definitely tried by uh, the Clintons in the late 80s, no, late 90s.
Yeah. Hmm.
And again, giving everyone universal health care now means blacks have universal health care.
Hmm. Hmm.
See
Hmm.
how racist this society is? That is shameful and disgusting.
Hmm.
So we need universal health care. It needs to apply to everybody. And yes, that even includes immigrants.
Hmm.
Because if you go to another country and get injured, you get taken care of. You
Hmm.
know, anybody in your country has a disease
Hmm.
and you refuse to take care of them because they're not legal here or
Yeah.
they're not a U.S. citizen, well, how
Yeah.
does that prevent the spread of that disease? So, and there are
Yeah.
many diseases that are easily spreadable.
Yeah.
So, yes, our universal health care needs to apply to everyone. And
Hmm.
we need to call it out again that if the reason why the Republicans are voting against universal health care, well, a lot of it now has to do with money,
Hmm.
but is
Hmm.
due to racism. Let's
Yeah.
call it out.
Yeah. Because because what is the we don't there is some sort of values consequence of always having to qualify the services that we're offering to people. Of course, services cost money, and that's objectively true, and that's therefore it is important. But it is at the same time we're constantly interrogating each other and asking ourselves, how do we do what do we need to do in order to do less? What do we do to do less for each other? What do we do to do? How do I get out of the sort of human obligation that I offer to immigrants who are also contributing to my community? How do I get out of needing to be needing to address gun violence because gun violence is just the natural consequence of having so many guns. I'm really enjoying this sort of this idea that that universal healthcare really. That I'm really enjoying how you're connecting me all these points, and also,
Highly
yeah,
interrelated due to the cost factor and the
yeah,
damage that a simple bullet does.
yeah.
Matter of fact, so let's reframe it.
Mm,
And most people don't know this, but less than one, or it's only one third of Americans that own guns, and I'm
mm,
one of them. But people think it's way more than that, and it isn't.
right.
Well, I've been
No.
shot at.
Mm,
So uh, Where is my freedom to not be killed, maimed, or have a life altering event due to a 25-cent bullet?
25
So come
cents.
on.
Oh my gosh.
It's yes. So again, where's the real freedom? They've clearly presented it as freedom to own and bear arms.
Hmm.
Well, where's our freedom to
Hmm.
be truly free of not being threatened or shot at or maimed or killed due to a gun? And
Good.
especially now, our children. So, as a matter of fact, what this DA said, the absolute worst thing he does is to walk up to someone's door and let them know that their child's dead due to a shooting.
Hmm.
That's got to be horrible.
Hmm.
So, and
Hmm.
again, we can't even discuss it. We cannot even obtain statistics on it because of the control of the gun lobby. And they've come up with a beautiful framing for it. It's freedom.
Hmm.
Well, what about the freedom of the other 2/3 of Americans? So,
Yeah.
and I'm not out to take everybody's gun. I am out to completely eliminate, make illegal assault weapons
Yeah.
and extremely
Hmm.
high capacity magazines.
Hmm.
They're not needed. Assault rifles,
Hmm.
assault weapons are made for one purpose, for killing people.
Yeah. Right.
Uh,
Mm.
our police, a matter of fact, a year after they're banned and removed from society, I'd remove them from law enforcement also.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's just there's
It's
no need for them, and they shred people. They
yeah.
absolutely shred people. So getting that's tied back into healthcare.
Yeah.
So, and likewise, that would also be the other purpose of gun insurance
Yeah.
is that insurance would now be forced to pay for all gun related everything.
It would
Uh,
put an
deaths,
incentive. Yeah.
injuries.
Huh.
I mean, if somebody gets killed by a gun, I mean, if you kill somebody with a car, that person's family gets $1 million.
Yeah.
That's the way it should be with a gun. If you put somebody permanently in a wheelchair, well, clearly you're not just taking care of them for the rest of their life, but you're giving them compensation for you know giving them a life that frankly you didn't have the right to do to someone.
Yeah. Right. Right. Right.
So
Of course.
uh
Of course.
and sorry, go ahead.
No. 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 Please finish your thought. Go for it.
Well, that's
Yeah. You got
I
it.
was done.
There you go. So, God, I wow, Matt, I am going to where our time is about up, so I am gonna I am gonna start wrapping it up. We've been able to touch on so many issues just in this time, but also just yeah, I really have to credit. I really appreciate your rooting all these different stories and your own personal experiences and these things that you've seen your community, your New Mexicans have to endure on a regular basis. Oftentimes, that something they have to deal with for the rest of their life when it comes to medical debt or when it comes to trauma. And I've really enjoyed, especially this, now we've been able to sort of these dots on this issue. I've really enjoyed this idea that something like univer something like universal healthcare stands inherently, it allows us a sort of outlet to be able to entertain a lot more conversation around how we can take care of each other instead of just uh always having to talk about gun violence all the time. And as a natural extension of that, also banning assault rifles being something that is designed for uh murder at scale. I mean, they're not. It's not by any means a. It is simply not a tool for peace. So I, Matt, I've really had to appreciate everything that you've had to say. I think I really appreciated you making your values clear. I think that's the really essential duty of any politician. And it seems to me that if New Mexicans also feel this sort of deep sense of, you know what, the direction of our government today is just not, it is not meeting our priorities. Our communities don't feel taken care of. It feels like there are, at the very least, opportunities for enriching our lives that we are missing, which is a price that we don't want to pay anymore. It feels unfair. If New Mexicans feel that way, it seems like they'll find a home in your campaign. So they should vote for you. They should hold you accountable to fighting for these issues once and for all. And they should volunteer and donate. So, and it seems like in general, those actions are essential for New Mexicans who must have these important needs met. So I suppose I was wondering if, to wrap things up, do you agree with this statement?
Do absolutely. As a matter of fact, this campaign is extremely winnable. And one of the main reasons is because, well, yeah, people are fed up and et cetera, and issues aren't being covered that need covered. However, for the first time in New Mexico, independents, and we call them declined to state a party, so declined to states, can now vote in the primary. And
Mm,
that changes everything.
right.
So New Mexico has same day voter registration for anyone who's never voted before. If
Mm,
you're third party, you can take advantage of same day voter registration. You do have to change your party, and you can change it back the next day.
mm,
And uh, where independents can now vote in the primary.
mm,
Frankly, I cannot. Most people are independent because they're fed up with both parties. Well, yes, I'm running as a Democrat, but I don't talk like any other Democrat talks. And I'm not taking any corporate money, and I'm not beholden to any corporation or billionaire or to Israel.
yeah,
So, yes, this is completely winnable. And yes, it does take support, monetary support, volunteer support. I would like to thank everyone that helped us get on the ballot by signing my petition and for getting petition signatures, especially because
mm,
volunteers are much needed. And now we need them to be doing phone calls and going door to door. So, and of
there,
course, the money to get the message out there.
yeah,
So
there you
thank
are.
you so much, Marcos, for doing this. And I
Absolutely.
love, the idea of deep canvassing and getting the issues out there and changing minds and, you know, just
So,
doing what needs done
yeah,
to convince people to vote and to be
yeah.
part of our democracy.
Gosh, that's so. It's thank you, Matt. It's absolutely it's absolutely the truth, and it's great to be on this team with you. So, Matt, well, thank you for joining me today. Thank you so much for running for office at this crucial historical juncture. Thank you for believing in deep canvassing. New Mexico, don't miss out. Be sure to follow below, volunteer, and donate to Matt Dodson for Senate today. Thanks, folks. Take care.
Thank you.